'cause I love you.
You think these are just 10 old songs from a decade everyone romanticizes? The truth is, you can draw a straight, provable line from every single one of them to something you're still listening to right now. One of these tracks is the reason sampling exists in hip-hop production today, cited by name by the critics who trace it. Another created a studio effect completely by accident that's been used on records in every decade since, and most people who've heard it have no idea where it actually came from. 10 songs. 10 moments that felt small at the time that turned out to be the exact hinge point an entire genre, an entire industry, or an entire sound quietly pivoted on. Number 10. Strawberry Alarm Clock, 1967. Incense and peppermints. That woozy organ hook rolled in like the whole room had tilted 3 degrees to the left, the kind of sound that made you check twice whether the record was actually playing at the right speed. The song wasn't sung by anyone in the actual band, Bambia Bading. The members refused the vocal outright after hating the lyrics an outside songwriter had written over their heads, and a 16-year-old visitor who happened to be hanging around the studio that day got handed the microphone almost as a joke. It went to number 1 anyway, selling over 1 million copies while the actual band members watched from the control room, having wanted nothing to do with the finished vocal take. You didn't know the voice on the record belonged to someone who was never a member of the group. You just knew the sound of it became shorthand for an entire summer. What most people never clock is that this exact formula, outsider vocalist, kaleidoscope organ, lyrics that meant almost nothing on purpose, became the blueprint dozens of other one-hit bubblegum psych bands copied for the next 2 years, right down to the production choices. It's a formula record labels kept reusing quietly for the rest of the decade, long after anyone remembered where it actually started. That blueprint got picked up fast, copied by label after label chasing the same easy formula. But the next band on this list wasn't copying a hit single. They were fumbling with a brand new keyboard nobody in the group actually knew how to play yet. Number 9. The Rolling Stones, 1967. 2,000 light years from home. That cold alien drone crawling under the track came from a Mellotron that Brian Jones had owned for only a matter of months, an instrument the band was still figuring out how to keep in tune from one take to the next, let alone use with any real confidence. Instead of trying to fake real strings convincingly, he leaned straight into how broken the machine sounded when it was pushed wrong, treating the malfunction itself as the actual instrument. It was one of the first times a British blues band proved that electronic keyboards weren't a novelty. They could carry actual dread and atmosphere on a serious rock record, not just a gimmick tucked into a bridge section. You didn't know that instrument was barely out of its box. You just knew. The song sounded like it had already left the planet. That same willingness to trust a machine nobody understood, yet is the reason entire studios full of rock bands started stockpiling Mellotrons within the year, chasing a texture none of them could get from a guitar or a piano. That machine didn't stay a novelty for long, and other bands started noticing what it could do to a room full of listeners. But a single guitar mistake, caught completely by accident a year earlier, was about to define an entire compilation that would one day teach punk rock how to sound raw on purpose. Number 8. The Electric Prunes, 1966. I had too much to dream last night. That opening sound hit like a giant insect swooping through the room before a single lyric played, a burst of noise nobody in the control room had actually intended to record. An engineer forgot to hit record while the guitarist tested his fuzz pedal alone in the room at a rehearsal, flipping the tape over the way the band did to save money on rolls of tape they couldn't really afford, and played back accidentally in reverse. It sounded like nothing anyone had heard. The singer ran straight into the control room and demanded they save it. They kept it, carrying that scrap of tape around in a box for months, looking for a song that finally deserved it. You didn't know the song's most iconic 4 seconds were a total accident nobody was even trying to capture. You just knew it raised the hair on your arm. 6 years later, that same track became the opening song on the compilation that literally defined garage and psychedelic as genre categories for the first time. The record that Lenny Kaye compiled, the one a young generation of future punk musicians studied like a rule book, learning that a mistake left untouched could sound more honest than a note played correctly. That rule book got rewritten almost immediately by an engineer who wasn't even supposed to be in the room running a session he'd only been asked to help with at the last minute.
Before we continue, can I ask you for a small favor? There's something I honestly don't understand. Only about 10% of the people who watch Nostalgia Rock YT are actually subscribed. That means more than 90% of viewers enjoy the videos, listen to the music, relive the memories, and then leave without subscribing. And if I'm being honest, that can be a little heartbreaking, because these videos don't just appear. Every upload takes hours of research, fact-checking, script writing, editing, and preserving the stories behind the music we all love. We do all of that because these songs deserve to be remembered. So when thousands of people watch and enjoy the content, but only a few take a second to subscribe, it sometimes feels like the work is being appreciated, but the people behind it are being forgotten. If this channel has ever helped you rediscover a song, relive a memory, or simply made your day a little better, please take 1 second to subscribe. It's completely free, but it's the biggest way you can support what we do. Every subscription encourages us to keep going, keep creating, and keep preserving the music that means so much to all of us. Thank you for being here. Now, let's get back to the music.
Number 7. Small Faces, 1967, Itchy-Coo Park.
To rest my eyes in shades of green.
That swooning, bending sound sweeping through the chorus wasn't made by any machine built to do it, and nobody in the room that day could have told you what to even call it. An assistant engineer discovered, almost by accident, that running 2 synced tape copies at once and slowing one down with a finger pressed against the reel created a warping effect.
Didn't you do that? I got high.
No pop record had captured before, something closer to a lucky fluke of physics than a designed studio tool. He showed it to the session's regular engineer right as things were starting, almost as an afterthought, and the band agreed to use it within minutes of hearing it for the first time. He didn't know that sound had no name yet the day it was recorded. You just knew the whole song felt slightly underwater. That accidental discovery became known as phasing, and it's been used on records across every decade since. It just took nearly 2 years for anyone in the industry to actually give it a name and start teaching it on purpose. That kind of studio trick
It's all too beautiful. It's all
was loud and immediate, the kind of thing you could hear working within the first 10 seconds. The next entry on this list took the opposite road completely. A quiet chamber pop album so overlooked, it had already been forgotten by the time it finally mattered. Number 6. The Zombies, 1968. Time of the season. That slow breathing bass line pulled you into a trance before the first word was even sung, settling into your chest like it had been there the whole time. The band that recorded it had already broken up by the time the song became a hit, having funded the album entirely with their own money after being dropped by their label.
What's your name?
Then watched it sink without a trace on release and quietly called it quits, genuinely convinced the whole project had been a waste of the little money they had left. You didn't know the group was already gone the first time you heard it on the radio. You just knew that organ line pulled you somewhere you didn't want to leave. Decades later, an entire wave of chamber pop and baroque pop bands would openly credit that same overlooked album as the reason they picked up strings and horns instead of just guitars, treating a record almost nobody bought in 1968 like a founding text. That kind of patient orchestral thinking
What's your name?
wasn't limited to one overlooked album. Another British band was about to bring an entire symphony into a rock session and accidentally invent a whole new genre doing it almost by default, because the original plan had already fallen apart. Number 5. The Moody Blues, 1967, Nights in White Satin.
Never meaning to send.
That hollow, echoing space in the middle of the song wasn't built with a real orchestra. Though it fooled millions of listeners into believing there was one, most of what sounds like sweeping strings came from one keyboardist alone on a mellotron, filling in for a symphony that was never fully booked because the label's original plan had already collapsed weeks before recording even started. The album itself was supposed to be a demonstration record showing off a new stereo format, and it turned into something nobody involved had actually expected, let alone budgeted for. You didn't know the strings weren't real. You just knew something in the room went quiet when that section opened up. That fusion of rock band and orchestral atmosphere is now widely credited as one of the founding moments of progressive and symphonic rock, the genre that would go on to produce entire arenas full of bands doing exactly what this one did by accident first, just with bigger budgets and actual orchestras this time.
With these eyes.
That genre took rock music somewhere grand and cinematic, filling arenas with instruments nobody expected to see next to a drum kit. One band on the other side of the ocean was about to take it somewhere far darker and stretch a single song until it became a ritual audiences still talk about decades later. Number 4. The Doors, 1967. The End. That slow-crawling build wasn't written to become an epic, and it certainly wasn't written to still be playing in movie theaters over a decade later. It started as a short breakup song and kept growing across live shows until Jim Morrison began improvising entire spoken passages nobody had rehearsed or approved in advance. Testing the patience of a studio engineer who reportedly asked, mid-take, if they genuinely intended to keep going. The album version was captured in a single extended take because nobody in the room could recreate what had just happened once the tape stopped rolling. You didn't know it was mostly one unbroken performance. You just knew that ending felt less like a song stopping and more like something finally exhaling. Over a decade later, a director looking for something to open a war film with reached for this exact track. And its use in that film cemented the long-form rock epic as a tool filmmakers still reach for whenever a scene needs to feel like it's unraveling in real time, decades after the song itself was recorded in a room nobody expected to still be talking about it. That kind of raw, unfiltered risk-taking in the studio wasn't only happening on stage in front of a live crowd. One guitarist was about to run an entire song backward through the tape machine just to see what would happen, with no idea if the result would even be usable. Number 3. The Jimi Hendrix Experience, 1967. Are you experienced? That warped current running under the vocals wasn't a dialed-in effect, and nobody could have promised the band it would even sound like music once it was finished. The entire track was recorded forward, then physically flipped in its entirety. Drums, piano, guitar, every part of it, and rebuilt piece by piece into a mix where the song inhales on the beat and exhales somewhere else completely. Nobody had committed a fully reversed arrangement to a real single before this, and the band had no way of knowing the label would even agree to release something this strange as an actual song. You didn't know the drums were running the wrong direction the whole time. You just knew the floor of that song never matched the ceiling. That same fearless studio experimentation is the reason an entire industry of guitar effects pedals exploded within a few short years, chasing the exact sounds this one album proved a guitar could make long before most of those pedals even had proper names on their boxes. That appetite for turning the studio itself into an instrument didn't stay confined to guitar tricks and reversed tape. One struggling English band was
If you can just get your
about to build an entire riff out of someone else's bad memory and turn it into one of the strangest recordings of the whole decade. Number 2. Pink Floyd, 1967, Interstellar Overdrive. That opening riff was never written down first, and it wouldn't exist at all if one man had heard a simple hum correctly. It came from a mix-up. The band's manager hummed a completely different song to Syd Barrett, trying to help the band learn it, and Barrett misheard the shape of it entirely. What came out of his guitar wasn't a cover of anything. It became a brand new riff. Stretched into 9 minutes of feedback nobody in that room could have planned or written down even if they had tried, built entirely from a wrong guess nobody bothered to correct once they realized how good it sounded. You didn't know. A stranger's bad hum was sitting underneath the whole thing. You just knew your chest physically rearranged itself when that riff kicked in. That single, accidental riff is now credited as one of the first true space rock recordings in history. A sound that crossed the ocean into Germany's cosmic music scene, fed directly into Hawkwind, and eventually shaped decades of bands chasing that same disorienting, floating feeling, all traceable back to one man mishearing a hum in a hallway. If you've made it this far, drop the song on this list that hit you the hardest in the comments, Wabobi. And if you already know exactly which track invented the sound you can't stop chasing, we want to hear it. Half the fun of digging through this stuff is realizing how many modern records are quietly standing on the shoulders of a mistake somebody made 60 years ago in a room that smelled like cigarettes and hot tube amplifiers. But even a genre being born by accident wasn't the biggest ripple on this entire list. The biggest ripple came from a song that critics now call a direct bloodline running straight into modern hip-hop, a claim that sounds impossible until you actually hear the receipts laid out. Number 1. The Beatles, 1966. Tomorrow Never Knows. This track was built for more than a dozen tape loops, none of which were meant to sit together in the same song when they were first recorded separately. Laughter sped up into something resembling a seagull, a wine glass rim rubbed by hand, distorted guitar sliced into fragments, all fed live into the mix by technicians standing at 5 separate machines scattered around the building, each one holding a pencil against the spinning tape reel just to keep it moving correctly through the playback heads. The final mix happened almost entirely by feel, the band and their producer working the faders together in real time, half planned and half completely random, with no way to rehearse or repeat the exact combination twice. The producer himself later said it was the one Beatles track that could never be exactly reproduced again, because the way those loops collided that particular day was pure chance, never destined to line up the same way twice. You didn't know the whole thing was a live, unrepeatable accident from the first note. You just knew nothing about it felt like it belonged next to any other record you owned. Music historians and producers now point to this exact track as one of the earliest true examples of sampling in popular music. Its fingerprints are traced directly through decades of electronic music and into modern hip-hop production, cited by name as an influence running from Hendrix all the way to Jay-Z, a straight line from one chaotic afternoon in an Abbey Road studio to a genre that hadn't even been invented yet. Every song on this list changed something bigger than itself. A studio mistake became a genre. A borrowed keyboard became an atmosphere millions of bands chased for decades. A single tape loop collision became the blueprint for how music would be built 60 years later. None of it was planned that far ahead. It just happened to be the right accident, in the right room, at exactly the right moment, made by people who had no idea they were setting something in motion that would still be running through your headphones decades after they'd put the instruments down. Which one of these do you think left the biggest mark on the music you listen to today? Tell us in the comments. We're reading every single one, and if this kind of deep dive into the songs that quietly built everything else is what you're here for, you already know what to do next.